All right. At this time, I'll call to order the regularly scheduled committee meeting for the Village of Midlothian, Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please. Clerk Moscow.
Trustee Caveney?
Here.
Trustee Crowley?
Here.
Trustee Hilly?
Here.
Trustee Ivan?
Here.
Trustee Johnson?
Here.
Trustee Killalea?
Here.
Mayor LaRue?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'll open the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment tonight, Jean?
I hope you guys have noticed how Christmassy the village is becoming, and the beautification was out on Saturday decorating, and we're still doing more. So we have deers to add and bows, and just drive around the village and you'll see everything that's being done. I think that's it.
The village green looks absolutely beautiful, so thank you. I leave work early and it's dark out and it's just absolutely beautiful, so thank you guys for everything you do. It's just amazing. There's some that were still twinkling 5:30 this morning, but yeah, it's very nice. Thank you. So now we'll close for public comment and move on to trustee business. We're going to start off, if it pleases the board, with Trustee Ivan, so that Treasurer Britton does not have to stay here all night. Trustee Ivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to discuss the 2021 levy. We have to file that with Cook. Oh, crap. Sorry. We have to file it with Cook County by the last Tuesday in December. Attached to the agenda item were all the documents that we use to send to the county, a levy primer, and it demonstrates how the levy is determined by each year. So if there are any questions, Maggie's here to answer them about the documents or about the levy. But I want to thank Maggie for giving us so much documentation on how it works, what it's about, past history as well.
You said last Tuesday of December, correct?
Yes.
Any questions?
Well, Maggie, could you just go over it? Because there's a lot of information here, and I don't really understand a lot of it. So can you give us like a general overview of it?
Sure. So the first document that was attached to the board docs was the levy primer, and that's just a summary of how we actually go about every year determining what our levy is going to be. If the board remembers, the village had decided to not raise the levy any more than the previous year's CPI once it got home rule. So this first document just talks about how I determine taking last year's levy, subtracting the debt service portion, multiplying it by the CPI, adding this year's debt service, and then that determines what we are going to levy. The next document is sort of like a historical, shows you a historical trend of what we've levied the last few years, and it shows the levy for each item in the levy. So what we're going to levy for corporate, what we're going to levy for pensions, bonds, police protection, fire protection, etc. And the pension levies are determined by the actuarial that is done by the village actuary, and the others we just kind of keep them in line with what we've done before. It is pretty self-explanatory.
May, can I ask you a question? So under 2021, it says proposed, and we are in 2021. Is that fiscal year, or should this be 2022?
So this is the year that we're going to levy it. We're going to levy it by December,
Okay.
the last Tuesday, December 2021. And then the taxes take, well, you know how long the taxes take to get on the tax rolls.
Thank you.
So that's how I think it's confusing, but that's how they describe it. And so then the next sheet that I sent you is called Village of Midlothian Tax History. It's actually, and it has 6 rectangles. I just do that because I think sometimes it's easier to look at, maybe versus looking at everything across. You look at everything as a total for each year. Again, I just think it's just historical information, but it's nice to kind of see where we are versus where we've been. I did want to point out that the EAV has gone up for the village considerably. So if you'll look at that page that we just, not the one with the 6 rectangles, but the one before it, you'll see that our EAV went up from 196 in 2019 to 226 in 2020. Part of that is a function of just higher home prices and things, and part of it is a function of the multiplier that is determined every year by the state of Illinois. So it's nice when that happens because our levy divided by our EAV determines the rate. If you have a higher EAV, it lowers the rate. So-
Maggie, what does the EAV stand
I'm
for once
sorry,
again?
equalized assessed valuation is the EAV, equalized assessed valuation.
And that's what the magic number that the state, or is it the county supplies, or?
Actually, what happens is if you take your market value of your home, multiply it by the assessed value multiplier, which for homes is 10%, and then you multiply that by the multiplier determined by the state of Illinois, and they do that every year. And that gives you your EAV. Add all the EAVs for all the homes and businesses, and that gives you the EAV for the village. And it did go up quite a bit.
Again, that's not an that's not a number that we create, it's something they create.
We have yes, you're absolutely right.
I just want to make that clear.
We have no control
Thank you.
over that.
And so what does that do for the taxpayer?
I'm sorry?
So when someone gets their tax bill, how will that affect them?
Well, it can lower your tax bill. It might make the EAV of your house higher, but it might make the tax rate lower. So it can lower the EAV, it can lower the taxes that you pay in your house.
Okay.
And you segued nicely, Trustee Crowley, into the next page, which is, this next page, I don't have a heading on it, but it is sort of what a tax levy would do to a homeowner's tax bill for every year. And I have the proposed levy in the most right-hand column for fiscal year 2021. And this does not include homeowner's exemption, senior exemption. But this year's tax bill for somebody who owns a $100,000 home could be $791. Last year it was $784. So you see that this is only for the village's portion of the tax bill, but it would go up approximately $7. That's without any homeowner exemptions or anything. Obviously, it might be a little bit lower than. So that just gives you kind of an idea of what a levy will do to a tax bill.
And can you just explain what percentage the village gets of that money?
You know what, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry. I think did the mayor sometimes use that?
16%
I thought that's what I thought it was. I thought it was 14, but you might be right.
of the total tax bill.
Something like that.
Well, about 16%, 1/6.
Of the village tax bill. And then we're almost finished, then the next next document that I included was the debt service portion, the debt service detail for our debts, for all our bonds. We do not levy for all our bonds. Our bond payments every year are about 1.6 million. We abate everything except around 750,000 to 800,000. So I just put this here so that everyone could look and familiarize themselves every year with the bonds that we have outstanding and what the payments are for each one.
That must be another.
And then that the final document, which is several pages long, is what the levy is going to look like when you see it next week. And the deputy clerk will be adding that front page and the voting page on the back. But this levy is, the numbers are taken out of the projected levy that I gave you in the document before.
Any other questions? All right, since there are no other questions, I want to have on the consent agenda for next week, the levy ordinance for fiscal year 2021-22.
So it'll be the same one that's here, just proposed will be removed, you said?
It's going to be it'll be this, yes.
Okay. Anything else, Trustee Ivan?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Then we'll backtrack to Trustee Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. Under my business, I have proposed, or I have included the packet that we talked about in October related to reinstituting the welcome packet for new residents in the village of Midlothian. And Jackie Harris, our manager of the front office and administration, was kind enough to put together a PDF of the packet and all the different departments and information. And I think it's very useful for someone moving into town so they know who they have to contact if they do have a question. I was asked by the mayor if we could draft a welcome letter. So on page 2 is a short welcome letter where we welcome them to Midlothian. We hope that they have a great experience living here and growing their family. We include a bullet point of all the documents that are inside of the welcome packet. And our plan is, if the board approves of the packet as presented, we'll have copies run off. I was told that the police department has purchased the plastic bags so that we could put this information in there. And so I would like any comments from anybody on the board as to whether or not we can proceed to go forward and begin instituting welcome packets as of January 1st, 2022.
Kathy, I just noticed one thing.
Sure.
Not that I'm sure he'll mind, but I don't think the police chief's information is on the administrative contacts.
It's further down.
It's under police department.
It's on the police department page.
That's about all.
Where is it?
Email address.
There's a police department page and a fire department page, I think?
Hold on. There's multiple.
Yeah, your email is spelled wrong.
Oh, I was just talking about on this page, on the administrative contact pages.
Keep going. There's one for the police department.
There is a typo. His email is wrong.
Yep, I did notice it. I apologize.
Unless
As a good Irish person,
my cell
I
phone
didn't
number
do
is-
this. If you'd like,
Oh, I see, they're individual.
yeah,
can handle all the complaints though.
give it to the other guy, right?
And I noticed that my cell phone number is incorrect. I would like to have Alan's cell phone under my name and
Me too.
leave my cell phone number under his name.
Oh, yeah, that'll work.
Does that work?
Sure.
Or just correct Alan's?
So Alan's is wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could leave it. I don't know everyone else's phone number, so. I like it, trustee.
It looks very good.
Kathy, can I just ask, there's doesn't seem like there's any information about the village library,
I'm sorry,
about the village library. I mean, you have about the park district on the cover letter and then some other stuff, but you don't, from what I see.
That could be an oversight. Would you like me to have that included?
Yes.
Okay,
And also the Historical Society.
okay,
Alan can probably help you out with the details.
sure.
Also, District 142 covers parts of Midlothian around
Yeah.
Cicero Avenue, myself included.
Kenton and West, right?
How would
Yes.
you know that, Jack?
Yeah. Lucky guess.
Trustee, this is very thorough, thank you.
Well, Jackie Harris did majority of it, and I'm glad you're reading. So that means you've really read our materials, and we appreciate that. So we'll make these corrections.
This is amazing.
Ms. Harris, thank you.
Yeah. I've been kind of out of pocket, Kathy, so I haven't had a chance to share this with Nick. So I'd like to send him a copy and have him look at the building department section and see if he wants to add or change anything.
Sure.
Okay.
She did reach out to each of the departments. My understanding is to look at the page, to look at all the information we had.
Okay.
I'm happy to have Jackie send it to you, or should Jackie send it to Nick?
Yeah, okay, send it to Nick. I'll let him know.
Is, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't we split between the Cook County Commissioners?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Actually, they got rezoned. Commissioner Miller is no longer going to be our commissioner on the west side.
Donna Miller's not?
That's what she told me.
Really? That's sad.
Also, the Cook County Board of Review has been changed. I'd have to look at that map, but that's under, I believe there's litigation in Springfield related to that, but I think that's something else that should be put on there. We are in the first Board of Review currently still for tax appeals.
That's being changed as well?
It's been changed, but it's kind of been held up.
So if we have any new information based on these changes in the boundaries, if you're aware of them, if you could send them to Jackie.
We are-
I would leave it as it is now
Okay.
because
Okay,
the election's not till next year.
okay.
So does
But-
that mean Deborah Sims and,
Yes, Deborah Sims is retired.
Deborah Sims is retiring.
no, I know she's retiring, but I mean, since the election is not until next year, are we still under 2 Cook County commissioners?
Correct.
Until the
Yes,
election?
until the election, right.
Then, when the election happens, then we're no longer going to be under 2? They're going to have they already redistricted?
Deborah Sims' district will have all of Midlothian.
Okay. Okay, well, that's disappointing.
That's going to be interesting. And our senators might change as well.
So then we'll only have 1 senator instead of,
State senator. And I do know that
we already have 1 state senator. With state reps, we have 2.
No,
Correct.
state senators, we have
we
2.
have 2 state senators. That may change to 1,
Who's our other senator?
Napoleon Harris
Yeah?
and Emil Jones Jr.
Oh, Emil Jones. Okay, sorry, I forgot about Mr.
And
Jones.
I believe the state reps are staying the same.
Okay.
I
Wow.
do know the U.S. rep map has changed. So that'll be something to work on January of 2023.
I believe Midlothian is.
It goes into effect next year.
Yeah, the general election is November of
next year.
22.
Yes,
Yeah. So it'll be something to do
sure.
late next year.
Sure.
No, this time next year.
Yep, we could do that.
What was I thinking? Garbage pickup schedule, or do you have those, Ms. Harris has those up front for taking, but
Yes.
is that something you think you'd want to include?
We can do that, and also I'm thinking that a lot of this information, when we do the redesign of the village's website, a lot of this information, it could be actually a link, so that this way they can get it, but if they lose it, throw it out, they can go to the website, click on a link, and have this information again.
It's fantastic.
So we'll do that. So we've got a few things to do, but I appreciate everybody looking at it, pointing out what needs to be tweaked, and I think this is valuable information, so this way people can find information out for themselves. So I'm very happy and I'm appreciative of Jackie Harris's efforts, and I know she's been working on this for a while for it. The other thing I just want to mention is Friday, the Saturday is the Chamber of Commerce Parade, and this year, for the first time, the village is going to be hosting a post-parade festivity, for lack of a better word, We're having Rum and Band here. The fire department has agreed to have hot chocolate and cookies. We'll be passing out wooden ornaments to any of the kids or adults if they want one, and this way they can color it, paint it, glue and sparkles, one of my favorites, for their own tree. So it'll be a nice activity to keep people around the tree and hopefully meeting some of their neighbors. So it's from 5 to 7 on Saturday. It's supposed to be about 40 degrees, so I think it'll be a nice activity. And I'd like to thank Trustee Caveney and Trustee Crowley for helping me to help get this organized, and also Nancy Mehal from the Chamber, who provided some assistance in terms of giving me knowledge as to what we needed to do to get this going. So that is all I have to report.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Excellent work. Trustee Hilly.
I have nothing this evening, sir.
Trustee Caveney.
Thank you, Mayor. There's lots to cover here. First, and of course, I thought my computer was going to work, but it's not, so I have to rely on my telephone.
Not here.
No, if you could click on that, that would be great. Okay. All right, first attached is the zoning board minutes from November 8th. Okay, so as you can see from the notes, the village has had numerous problems and other issues with regards to B&Bs, Airbnbs. We had a particular situation where an individual owns 2 or 3 homes in town, rents those out to the same person, and then that same person was renting the homes out as Airbnbs, and the original owner claimed ignorance that she had no idea. So, and then there's the argument, well, this is not a B&B, it's an Airbnb, or this isn't an Airbnb, it's a B&B. And there are some limited rules in the village code already with regards to B&Bs, but they are being significantly stretched. So, during the course of the meeting, Superintendent Weiner explained the village's position and advised that we've had numerous problems and that they're not allowed in any other districts, and the village board would prefer that they not be allowed in the village. The matter was then open to public comment. There was no public comment to be made, so the board had no questions. So they made a motion to approve the zoning text amendment. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions with regards to that. Oops.
We're not allowing it, right?
Okay, let's go to the text amendment. All right. Does anybody have a copy of it?
It won't come up.
Hmm?
Won't come up.
Won't come up on
Won't come
my
up.
dues.
And I apologize. I've been out of the village for the last week, so I've not had an opportunity to print this. So I don't have a paper copy myself.
I can come up again here. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
So
Thank
bed
you.
and breakfast.
Trustee Crowley?
You're welcome.
I got this.
Okay.
You got it? I got it, okay.
Sandy, the screen is locked. It won't slide.
It doesn't like you.
There. I guess not.
Here, you're talking about the, right?
No, that's the event venues.
And they're doing the same
No, we're in
thing?
the other one.
Right here. Where are we?
We're still on Airbnbs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's more pages.
Okay.
All right. Attached is the application that the village submitted. All right, this is the description of the text amendment. Current zoning currently allows through special use for short-term rentals commonly known as bed and breakfast establishments. One of the issues is that the owner of these 2 premises failed to come to the village and even apply for a special use to even operate a bed and breakfast. Okay, it's located in Table 5 of 11-5-2 of the Village Code. The residential districts that were allowed are R1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The current zoning code also allows through special use for short-term rentals commonly known as bed and breakfast establishments in Table 6.1 of 11-6-2 of the code. And the business districts that were allowed were B1 and B2. The village is the village's request is to not allow short-term rentals commonly known as Airbnbs, B&Bs, VRBOs, etc. within the village limits. So that's what the text amendment is, and that's what the zoning board voted on at that last meeting, was to not allow these types of businesses to operate at all. The issue that was at hand, from what I understand, is that we had a couple situations where a property was rented out as an Airbnb, and there were like 10 vehicles parked in the driveway in front of the house, and it just kind of caused a little bit of a nuisance in the neighborhood, and it bothered the neighbors because there were people in and out, in and out, in and out. So, for that reason, it was brought to the zoning board.
Just to clarify, the bed and breakfast under the current village code is not the problem. It's not the issue. It's the verbal. A bed and breakfast under our current code has specific requirements, and it is a business. It's a business. It's not a homeowner renting out vacation rentals by owner. That's a totally different thing. That's literally renting your house out for a couple of days. We don't have provisions for that. That is illegal in the village code right now. A bed and breakfast is a business.
And also, the distinction is, in a bed and breakfast, the homeowner resides in the
Correct.
home and
Absolutely.
is present in the home, and they are renting out one of their bedrooms in their home to someone to come and stay there.
As a business.
Right, that's the distinct difference. So, my question to the board is, okay, according to the zoning application, it says the village request is not to allow short-term rentals commonly known as B&Bs, Airbnbs, VRBOs, etc. So my question to the board is, does the board agree that we don't want to have Airbnb, VRBO, B&Bs in the village?
Yes.
What about, to the attorney's point, do we still want to allow bed and breakfasts? Or do we want to get rid of those as well?
No, it's a legit business. If the homeowner has got a big house, and, I mean, Alan may want to open a bed and breakfast.
Shea Mossville.
He'd certainly show up.
Okay, so again, it was just for clarity's sake, I just wanted to raise the question.
That's just my opinion. I don't know what.
And if I may, just a clarification is that all the problems that we're having in the village have nothing to do with B&Bs. Those are,
With a traditional B&B.
no,
That's
with a
correct.
B&B, there is no, what they're doing is not a B&B. That's a person renting out their house. That's not a B&B. A B&B is defined under the code, and it's regulated under the code, and we've not had any problems with those.
Okay. Then I believe that we are probably going to have to set forth some pretty specific definitions into the zoning code, into the zoning table, so that there can be no confusion, no twisting of words, no, machination of a thought that a B&B, that a bed and breakfast is in any way, shape, or form similar to an Airbnb or a VRBO.
Well, we're still going to, we're still going to eliminate B&Bs too.
Well, no, that's what the mayor is saying, is that we still want to allow bed and breakfast establishments. I don't even know if we have any in town.
I don't think we
you?
do. We don't.
I don't think we do.
We don't.
Not that I'm aware of.
They couldn't be the problem because there are none.
We were trying to get rid of the other B&Bs that are not B&Bs.
The village is trying to
Short-term rentals,
eliminate the
that's what-
short-term
Yeah.
rentals of Airbnbs and VRBOs.
Do you not want an actual legit bed and breakfast in town?
Well, the same type of burden that the rest of them do, the Airbnbs. I know the owners on the premises with the B&B, but, I can think of one thing that's definitely parking and a noise issue.
I'm fine with that. That's why I said, it's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean,
Just eliminate them all.
I think B&B is the same as, B&B had the potential to do the same thing, basically, as far as the problems for the next door neighbors. I don't think there's any difference there. The big problem we had was B&B was special use, so that
Right.
was one thing. But, so we had the choice of whether to put it in a certain place or not.
Right.
But, I don't see how even like a B&B that has the potential theoretically to on a commercial B&B, 2 or 3 people can rent bedrooms there. And I don't believe we're set up for parking or noise issues. We're not a country town. It's very residential. There isn't a lot of homes that have spaces, big spaces between each other.
And that's why in the current code, it's set up that they are required to have a special use.
Right.
So, for example, if somebody came to the village hall with a special use and they applied to the zoning board for a special use to operate a Airbnb, to operate a true bed and breakfast,
Yeah.
if they had 2 bedrooms, if it was a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 children, and it was a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, and they came to apply for a special use, our question would be, where would your guests sleep? And would your guests be sharing the restroom with the rest of your family? Versus somebody who came to the village who might have, you know, a 4 or 5-bedroom home with 3 full bathrooms that can accommodate that one of their bedrooms is going to be set up as a bed and breakfast room, and that they would have, you know, access to their own restroom. That's the reason why we ask for special use, so that the village can make that determination so that the neighborhood is not going to be overburdened, and so that the home is not going to be overburdened, and also to ensure that there's going to be adequate parking. You know, if it was a home.
I just think you're going to cause trouble. I'm not an Airbnb. Somebody lives at the home that's never there, and now they're going to be a B&B. I think you should eliminate the whole thing. You're just causing more trouble.
Okay, again, Don, I don't disagree with you, but please realize the distinction.
Yes,
A
I
bed and
understand.
breakfast is occupied by the homeowner.
Right.
They're not absent.
And it's a business. It is
And
a business.
It's a business,
It's
whereas,
not a
well, I
rental.
mean, Airbnbs and VRBOs are businesses as well. However, the owner is not present in occupying the rental property.
Actually-
That's the difference.
Actually, they're not businesses, trustee.
They're
What
not?
they are, no, they are individual homeowners
Mm-hmm.
who are renting out their houses short-term. And everything that trustee Killey just said
Mm-hmm.
is an absolute nightmare all across the country because it's unregulated and it goes back to the days in which you could rent a room in your house. That is not a B&B. In a B&B, under our code, owner has to be there.
Correct.
It's a business, has to register as a business, has to get insurance, has to go through the whole thing that a small hotel would. That is different from someone who tosses their house on a website
Right.
and then takes renters and boarders.
Okay, so what is the board's desire? Do we eliminate all of them?
Don changed my mind, yes.
Since we don't have one and this is not a high tourist area, I would agree with that, eliminate all of them.
Okay.
There's no place in town that could support,
No. And you're causing
Except for
more
maybe Alan's house.
troubles. I'm just telling you.
Or your house.
parking's an issue.
Yeah, oh, in your house, parking's an issue. Mhm. I'm sure your cul-de-sac neighbors wouldn't mind, Alan, would they?
It's not going to happen.
No. Okay, wonderful. No.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you very much.
That was easy.
Yep, okay, here we go. All right, so Attorney Valadez, we have our direction. No, we have to revise, move forward with the text amendment so that Airbnbs, VRBOs, and bed and breakfasts are no longer permitted in the village. Okay, the next item up for review is the event venues. Okay. Okay, under the meeting minutes, item number 5. The village petitioned the zoning board with regards to private venues. Superintendent Weinert stated that residential private venues are not currently addressed in our zoning code, and private event venues are a way for the owners to avoid building codes by renting out. And it's not just residential venues, residential properties, it's also some of our commercial properties in town. Private event venues are a way for the owners to avoid building codes by renting out an empty building and claiming that there was no food or alcohol. Renters then bring in caterers or alcohol, and the owners are not on site and claim no knowledge and therefore no responsibility. There have also been a few occasions in town where the police have been called to an event that was held in an empty storefront or an empty building because the party got out of control, there were too many people, the party spilled out into the parking lot and caused some issues. I don't know, Chief, maybe you can clarify how many times you've been called out into situations like that. I know of at least one or two. I don't know if there's more than that.
We're having 2 businesses specifically that we're having numerous issues with, that were in the plazas, that were vacant storefronts where they were renting out for party use.
Okay. And is that continuing to happen, or is it kind of calmed down?
We kind of got it under control just by talking to the owners of the plaza.
Okay. Okay, so these types of venues are not addressed in the village code. The text amendment would allow these rentals only in business zones B1, B2, B3, and the OI zoning districts, and it would not be allowed in any of our 5 residential districts. By amending the text, the village would then have some jurisdiction and control. So the zoning board held a discussion that included eliminating the residential use. The application requirements were explained that, it would have to include who, what, when, where, etc., that licensed food handler for the catering. The board recommended security if alcohol was going to be served per the ordinance attachment. A liquor license would have to be applied for per ordinance if liquor was to be served as well. There was no public comment, and the board had no further questions, and a motion was made to approve the additional village code language. And it was approved unanimously by the zoning board. So,
Anyone?
any questions? I know that, I believe that Superintendent Weinert had already started working on putting together an ordinance for review, and I know Attorney Valdez, he shared that with you, correct? And I know that some of the language was also shared with the fire department and public works and the police department, and they included some of their comments as far as what they wanted to have included in that ordinance as well.
And I believe we spoke about it at a board meeting previously.
So my question to the board then is the board in agreement that we will allow event venues with the very strict requirements that are set forth, and that we do not want to allow them in our residential neighborhoods? That we would allow them in just the 3 business districts, the OI district, with strict requirement?
So you're talking about writing an ordinance for that instead of a text amendment, no?
I'm sorry, maybe it is, we would have to do a text amendment. I don't think that we have an ordinance that governs it, but we would have to do a text amendment to put it in our zoning code that these are only, so it's kind of a twofold process on this one. We do have to write an ordinance because we don't have one, and we do have to do a text amendment to the zoning code because I believe.
We're creating the category and we
Yeah.
don't provide for it, right?
And then, are we asking for special use on that also,
Yes.
Attorney Valdez?
Yes.
Yes.
And
We're asking the business owners to come to the village and require that they get a special use to operate their premises as an event venue.
correct. And
So-
that's a landlord who has a corporate box, if you will, and they rent it out short-term. It's the tantamount to a commercial B&B. In other words, I have a commercial unit and I can rent it out, perfectly legal. Someone wants to rent it for an evening, just to have a party. Well, normally, there wouldn't be anything against that if they're not selling liquor, not violating any of the liquor laws or business laws. But in effect, this owner of this property is renting it out short-term for people who are having parties.
Right.
Perfectly legal unless we have, if they're following the liquor code, they're not conducting business and selling anything. The way the municipalities address that is they create a category called venue. which means that now becomes a business. Now, if you don't have a jewelry store or a hot dog stand, but you have a box that you are renting out short-term for the purpose of parties and single event things, that now is a business in Midlothian. It's a special use, and you have to come to the board to get it.
It would be kind of like if somebody came in and bought Ray Day Lodge and wanted to operate it as an event venue. Or another similarity that I just thought of is, I believe over in the Walgreens Plaza, every year, they would have like a pop-up Halloween store every September, October.
There you go.
They would come in for 60 days, they would sell all the Halloween stuff, and then they're out. Okay, so now you might have a plaza owner who has a empty storefront, and somebody comes in and says, Mr. Landlord, I would like to rent this storefront from you, and I'm gonna operate this. This is my business, but I'm gonna operate it as a pop-up event venue, and I'm gonna rent it out to people on a, 12-hour basis, so they can come in and have a birthday party or anniversary party or whatever kind of party they want, blah, blah, blah. Well, we want these types of event venues to be regulated so that they don't get out of hand, especially if they're gonna be bringing in alcohol.
So Kathy, I would think it would be different than someplace like Ray Day or a banquet hall that has a liquor license that doesn't allow outside, alcohol. They require it to
Well,
be, they have,
But
they
Ray
have
Day,
everything
but
there.
that is Ray Day, that's how Ray Day is operated right now, but I'm saying if Ray Day got sold,
Oh,
if Ray Day got sold to somebody and somebody wanted to operate it as an event venue, then yes, we would have to require that they have a liquor license to be able to dispense alcohol.
Correct. We regulate Ray Day as a
Right.
banquet hall, and they have all the requirements for insurance, bond, all the
Right.
rest of that stuff. But what we have with these buildings that are vanilla boxes
Right.
is that here's the keys, have a party.
Right, exactly.
So Kathy, I have two questions. One is, if we had something like this, would the building department have to come in and check it out before someone said, I want to use it over the winter for the next 3 months to make sure everything's up to snuff related to the building code?
They would have to come in, based on its size and based on how many people they can have in it. If it's based on the size will limit the occupancy. Okay, so if it's of a particular size and it's of a particular occupancy, the fire department would come in and the fire department would determine what that occupancy is. Now, if it happens to be in one of our older plazas in town, if it's an old storefront that has one restroom, but it can have occupancy that would then require to have 2 restrooms, then the space would have to be updated and they would have to add a second restroom. And the space would have to follow building code as far as, whatever safety rules are in place, whatever the building code is, the space would have to follow whatever the building code is, and then,
So that kind of leads me to my second question,
Okay.
because there are now village resources being used to ensure that this box is up to code, has enough bathrooms, things like that.
and the building department would do that anyways if somebody came in and applied for a business license to operate a business.
Would it be every time a different venue changed, or would it be just one time?
If an operator, let's say somebody wanted to, rent a space out of one of our multi-tenant plazas in town, they would come to the building, they would come to the village, they would apply for a business license stating that they want to rent this space, they want to operate it as a party venue, an event venue. The building department would follow the ordinance that would be drafted, and they would go over and they would check out the size of it, they would check out how it's built out, if it requires any upgrades with regards to restrooms, if it's sprinklered. And the fire department would also come, and the fire department would identify and calculate what the occupancy would be. So
they would tell the code enforcement officers, fire, building, what their configuration is going to be, what their capacity is going to be, and what their use is going to be, the actual activities. And that's how it would be regulated.
right.
So my follow-up question is, we're putting resources in to ensure this is up to code.
Yes.
Do we need to consider any kind of a registration fee? Because the resources we are putting out from the building department, fire department, and the police department, I don't know if that's crossed your mind, we're putting out resources, what is the village getting in return for ensuring a safe place for people to gather?
Because they're applying for a business license that is allowed via ordinance and via our zoning code, they would pay an annual business license fee like everybody, like all of our other businesses in town. So there would be that fee.
Okay, thank you.
There would be that
And
fee.
there's a fire inspection.
And there would be also the annual fire inspection fee too. So. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions regarding event venues? Is anybody against them? Does anybody have any other questions about them?
Actually, I have one. So if I want to rent office space for a training class or something like that,
Uh-huh.
do I have to go through all that process, or can I just rent that space for a training class?
Well, if you want to rent a space for a training class, that's something a little bit different. We never discussed a training class. I have no idea.
That would not be an event.
That's not an event. That's a little different.
training
We're
class.
talking about people who are having, these
Food and
event
drink.
venues
So
are,
anything with food and drink is what you're describing then as an event?
the event venue is traditionally used for a party room. It's basically a party room. It's not, a training venue. Now, if you were going to rent a space for a training venue and it was sized so that if you were going to put in 8-foot banquet tables with 2 or 3 people at a table, if the room would be traditionally sized depending on the type of furniture that goes into it, because that would determine the occupancy. You couldn't have a training class for 100 people in a space that only holds 42 people.
And a training event in an office box would be consistent with an office zoning.
With the use.
Correct.
So that would not fall under the event?
No.
No, that would
No.
fall under
Okay.
an
No.
office use.
I just want to make sure
So-
that the business could do something like that.
Are you planning to?
I'm always thinking about, yes, having training events.
Yep.
So, I guess my concern would be is if we had events pop up in areas where it affected the businesses next door to them, or things like that, minimized parking, even if it's somewhere else. I mean, I'd be concerned because those are the businesses that are
Right.
here that we have an obligation to
Right.
as well. So, I'm not really in favor of it, so. I have
Attorney
to say.
Valadez, do you recall if we had a special use requirement in this? Because we could write a special use requirement into it also.
For event venue?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That
Okay.
was the whole intent, was
Yeah.
to create an event venue and to regulate that use, the problematic uses, by designating it as a legitimate use and then restricting it and regulating it.
Okay.
And the bottom line is that it's problematic, and the police chief will tell you, if you said, the guy let me use his space, and we're not selling liquor, and we're not selling food, and we're just having a party, that's problematic to
Right.
say that they violated the law.
Right.
I didn't get to see the final version, but from our discussion, the way we recommended the ordinance be written, I think the restrictions are such that it would be almost impossible to comply to get it anyhow, based on, we don't allow the BYOB, if they did want to serve alcohol, they'd have basket trained people,
Yeah,
servers
but-
on site, and nobody's going to go through.
The
Right.
event venue special use conditions would be so stringent that only legitimate event venues
Right.
could comply.
Right, okay. So it would be subject to special use.
Absolutely.
But if it's special use, it has to go through the zoning board of appeals?
They have to apply
Yes.
for a special use permit. Yep.
So there better be a little bit more money.
Oh, yeah, you'd have to apply for a special use. You'd have to pay
Yeah,
all
they have
fees
to
for
apply
a
for a
special.
special use.
Okay, so that's
So it's,
another thing that,
yeah. Because I don't know if legally we could restrict that kind of business.
I don't know how you can. How you can if.
So the only thing we could do is significantly regulate it so that it's not a problem.
And that is how nationally municipalities are dealing with the same problem that we had, which is someone having a party, they're not selling liquor, they're not selling food.
But they're providing free food and free alcohol.
Right, so what do you do? That's not an ongoing business, it's just a party. And how do you regulate that?
Right.
And the answer has been, you zone it. You can't have random parties in an office building.
Right.
Unless you have a special use.
Or in a strip center in a vacant retail
Right. you got-
space, in a
All of
strip
the-
center.
All allowable zoning districts are special use, so we would
So-
have to go through special use.
so another question would be, I think trustee Crowley brought up, is parking. these events, if they're large, would take up parking spaces normally allocated to businesses, other businesses in a strip shopping center.
And that would be regulated too. Under the special use process, the zoning board would have to be presented with a parking plan and parking capacities to address those issues before it got to you. And if it doesn't have that when it gets to you, then certainly the board could ask those questions and vote it down and send it back.
Anything else? Anyone?
Okay, last but not least, special use for auto outlet group. Okay, this is with regards to the auto lot that's at the corner of 147th and Pulaski. That property has been a car dealership for as long as I can remember. The gentleman who now owns the property used to also own and operate the car sales business on his property. He still retains ownership of the hard corner. He also purchased the property that used to be the nail school. The building is demolished and there's just a concrete pad there. That concrete pad was not poured and not meant to hold vehicles. That concrete pad was poured to hold foot traffic. And so it is not, at this time, it's not parkable, and he's aware of that. So anyways, the gentleman who owns the hard corner and owns the former nail school property is now just the property owner. His tenant owns and operates the auto dealership, and they're the ones who applied for the special use. Don had asked me a question. He sent me an email with a question asking me who Mr. Gandhi was, and he's the gentleman who attended the meeting on behalf of the tenant/auto dealer, and he is he's the manager. He's basically the store manager. He's an employee of the car dealership. So I had asked Nick if he would explain who was who, because it was very, very confusing, very complicated who all the different players were. So that's why I sent you guys an email today. I forwarded you Nick's email with an explanation of who the owners were. So basically, going back to the zoning board minutes, the attorney for the property owner was in attendance, who also happens to be the son of the property owner. And then the employee/manager of the facility was there on behalf of the business owner. Okay. Don's computer's moving a little slow here.
Back again. Let me get it this time.
There we go.
There.
So, some issues that the fire department and the building department have had in the past is that it appeared as though the auto dealership was also doing repair of vehicles inside the garage, and that is not allowed. It's not set up to do repairs. They don't have the proper type of equipment in there to do repairs, and the fire department had been in there a couple times, as was the building department, asking them to not do repairs. They gave them a list of some of the repair items that needed to be taken care of. They were told they cannot, for safety reasons, the fire department does not want them parking vehicles in the garage overnight, because if there is an emergency, fire department can't get in there to pull a burning car out of the garage to save the building or to save anything. The building and the cars are going up in smoke. So they are not allowed to do oil changes. Mr. Ghani had advised, he again is the employee/manager of the auto business, had advised that they do have an agreement with another car repair shop somewhere else where they, if a car comes in that they're going to be selling and it needs repair, it gets either driven or towed over to this other facility, it gets worked on and then sent back. On occasion, they may have some pieces of equipment on site that are only there because are waiting to be shipped out because they're required to be recycled in some special format. They had discussed some equipment that was there, some engines, transmissions, some 55-gallon drums, so on and so forth. By the end of the meeting, Mr. Ghani had stated that all the repairs were sent out. He advised, what locations they were sent to, and he promised that they would be doing no repairs there. The only thing they would be doing inside the garage area would be, washing cars and detailing cars that were getting ready to be sold. So after all the questions, after everybody went through all, after the whole board went through all their questions and Mr. Weinert asked questions, then the zoning board did vote. They put forth a motion and made the motion to approve the petition subject to certain conditions that were cited by Attorney Murphy, who was there. Some of these conditions include, but are not going to be limited to, number one, they have to have general cleanup of the site and storage of materials. The auto parts have to be stored or removed from the site. Repair equipment that's on site that is there, and there are no repairs to be done to vehicles at that time. There's to be no overnight storage of vehicles inside the building, and that the building must be in compliance with village code. So, and based on those restrictions, the zoning board approved the petition to allow them to continue operating the vehicle business there. So, does any of the board members have any questions?
I have some comments, and Attorney Valdez, tell me if I'm out of line when I'm talking about some things, because I have definitely a history with this property, because it was owned, the nail salon was owned by the land bank. At the time that the landowner came to the land bank and said they wanted to buy the property, if the land bank could find a way to demolish the property. The discussion at that time was, on the demolition, it had to be at least $50,000, at least. So there never was, at that time, the landowner who was operating the car dealership at that time was told many times by Superintendent Weinert, by Trustee Kreis, that they could not park vehicles on the slab.
Correct.
Or even if there was never, the zoning did not permit them to do it unless they got a special use permit. But as it was stated now, they didn't have any possibility of doing that. What the land bank got involved with it was, and Midlothian sort of jumped on board, was that the landowner stated that he wanted to develop the property other than a car dealership. And that sounded appealing also to the Midlothian, but also to the land bank, that's their goal, to develop properties that is going to help transform the business district of the town they're representing. So there was never any discussion about this, ever.
About what?
About
them using it to
parking cars
about
there. They were
expanding their
told
lot?
many times, forget it.
Okay.
No
Well-
one, okay, but except that they got a special use. They were told they could get a special use, there's no doubt about that. But,
Well,
so.
let me just interject one
Yeah.
quick thing. There has been, I had heard that they are also right now in conversation with the post office.
Right.
The post office is interested in acquiring that property because
Right.
they want to expand their parking lot
Right.
and they want to park mail trucks there.
Right.
So I wasn't sure if you
And
were aware of
the
that.
post office at that time had brought up they would be interested in the lot. But the best thing for the village would be to develop that
Right.
corner, and they was talking about some, drive-through type facilities that could reasonably expected to be there. So that's where that happened, and Mr. Jonas bought that property, as you just said. I guess part of the special use process is, what is the benefit to the village of this happening? I don't know how many if they talked about how many cars could be parked on the slab, it certainly isn't a lot.
No.
5, 7, I don't know. And the Midlothian Auto doesn't do a ton of business. They do sell cars, but not in any great volume. Before Midlothian, it was Midlothian Auto sometime in, it was sold by something else. So I guess in the zoning that was redone about 2009, there was no possibility of them selling it to someone else, but we backed off of that because we didn't have money. And I think Clerk Moskal can tell us more about that. When Cars 147 came and said we wanted to develop that as a car lot, the zoning didn't permit it because the village board thought that having car dealerships there wasn't a good thing. I think we may still think that, except we need the revenue. But I don't know what really benefit this does for the village. It's the benefit to have that corner developed, and if we make it easier not to be developed by doing this, I mean, what is it going to sell? A couple more cars, which is not any great revenue. The volume of cars is a great revenue. For a small amount is not.
Well, I don't.
And one more
sorry.
point. And I think like the board did when they changed the zoning in 2009. That corner it makes a poorer prospect to develop anything in that downtown area, because when you go by the hard corner, you see a car lot. And I totally agree with it. Unfortunately, I voted for it. The board at the time voted for it to develop Cars 147 as a car lot. Now we're back to this, and we're going to make it easier for a car lot to be there for forever.
Well, not necessarily forever. The special use runs with the business. It
Right.
does not run with the property.
But,
It runs with the business owner.
right,
The issue here also is that we have to remember is that that corner has been a car lot for 30 years. Wasn't it a Bob Watson? Wasn't it Bob Watson used where
Bob
Cars
Watson.
147?
Right.
And then
Right.
didn't he own that also? Or was that always an independent
Bob
car lot?
Watson, I think, used that.
Because I thought at one time he owned
Done right?
both.
Yeah, he did.
Dunray was,
Right.
Am
Yeah.
I thinking the other corner?
But at this point in time,
It's
what
always
is
been
the
a car lot.
benefit of giving them the extra land? It's a little extra money, but
Don, I
I mean,
don't-
we
they're-
have to
they're-
consider that as a point.
They're asking for a special use to operate their car dealership at the hard corner. I need to double check the application. Superintendent Weinert sent us that application today, which I forwarded to all of you. And I don't know if it included that other lot. I don't know if it included that lot or if it just included the current hard corner.
well, he owns both lots, so.
Yes, he does.
But they're not contiguous.
Right.
They're not contiguous because the alley is in the way.
Right.
And I don't know, for safety purposes, for emergency vehicles, if we're required to maintain that alley, or if we can
That's already-
vacate the alley.
That was taken care of when the property was sold. All those issues were taken care of. And
But what do you mean they were taken care of? Because I don't know what that.
fire department was happy with it, and
No,
and
that's okay.
and Public Works was happy because there's a lot of infrastructure under that alley, and basically they couldn't build anything on the alley. They
can't build
have to
over the
maintain
alley.
access
That's
to
right.
it.
So-
That was part of the agreement.
Okay, so that alley has to stay in place
Yes.
because
Right.
of the
Right.
utilities, the village utilities that run under there?
And the other utilities.
Okay, well,
Water
it
and
says,
gas.
Yeah,
pardon me?
There's water and gas under there, I think.
yeah.
Okay, so the alley can never be vacated to be built on?
Correct.
Okay, it says
It
here.
can be
I'm looking-
vacated, but you can't
You
build.
can't build over it.
Okay, we could vacate it, which means he can use it as a walkway, but he can't park anything on it.
Right.
He can't even pave it to park a car on it.
You can pave it.
You can pave it.
You can pave it.
You
You
can
can't
pave
just
it,
have to dig it up if we have
but
to
you
get in.
can't park a vehicle on it. You
Yeah, you can
can,
move the vehicle and dig it up.
pardon me?
If they had a car parked there and you had a water main break, you'd move the car and dig it up and fix the water
Okay.
main.
So if they wanted to incorporate that into some sort of expanding their parking area, they could? As long as it was asphalt, not concrete?
Presumably. Don's point is the board going to approve the special use or not? If we do not approve it, they'll have to close this existing business down.
Exactly.
It'll
And
be empty.
I'm looking at the application. I'm looking at the application, and it says address of business, 14700 Pulaski Road.
Sorry, did I say Don? Trustee Kilby. So that's the question before the board. Do you want this business to stay open as a used car dealer or not? That's the only question. He owns both properties.
Can I tag along? So if we don't want it to remain a car dealership, what is the prospect of getting a new business in there in the next 365 days?
Yeah, I think
Or
that's
next
that's
2 years or 3 years or 4 years?
Is it considered a hot corner
It
where
was
somebody
sold-
else would want
It
it?
was sold, I think, 3 years ago.
So we do have, we do have a new TIF there, that we just developed and haven't really started marketing. It's been a pandemic, so there is a new TIF there, so there is opportunity. We do have, on the agenda tonight, we are, revamping the Economic Development Committee, which, I would think that would be one of their high priorities, is using the TIF area to entice businesses. I'm really torn.
To follow up on Trustee Crowley's statement, given that it's now in the new TIF district, there is the opportunity to make it affordable or to provide incentives to the current owner to abandon, if you grant the special use, to abandon it when there's enough money in the TIF to provide some other development and put something else in there.
That's a possibility. I am in favor of allowing the special use because this person has been operating his business there for for a while now, and I don't want to see, and it's right smack in the middle of town, I don't want to see a vacant corner with no business operating there.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is that the village board approve the special use with conditions.
And put that on the agenda.
Well, the attorney has to draft the ordinance for it, but we're not.
Not yet.
Yeah. We're not ready to put it on the agenda next week for approval because the ordinance has to be drafted.
All right,
But
so that gives us
my recommendation
time
is
to
that.
think about it too. Yeah, I'm torn as well.
Right.
I'm torn.
So Kevin, just a question. So is the owner willing to accept the conditions?
Well, the owner will have no choice. The conditions that are going to be set forth, the conditions that are set forth in the zoning board of appeals meeting minutes, he has no choice. He has to abide by those conditions, or else between the building department, the fire department, if they continue, if they present a situation where it's a safety issue, the fire department could potentially go in and close their business down. So
And those
I'm sure-
conditions would be very similar to the conditions that were put on the special use for the used car lot on Kedzie and 147th, in which the
Yes.
board went through, the zoning board went
Yes.
through every single one of the questions that have been asked so far. Parking, fire,
Right.
grease pits, the whole thing.
Trustee Caveney wants you to draw up the special use.
Mr. Murphy will be handling that since he,
Trustee Caveney would like Mr. Murphy to draw up the special use ordinance,
Yes,
Yes.
it's a
Okay.
special use ordinance.
and then we'll get it on the agenda at some point when it's done under Trustee Caveney's business.
okay.
Okay.
Now, just a point of information would be, if to override the zoning board of appeals vote, you'd have to have a 5/6 vote
Correct.
from the board to
Supermajority.
override.
Is that a supermajority?
Supermajority.
So
Supermajority.
so 5 out of 6 trustees would
Right.
have to vote to
Right.
override. Okay.
Right.
Do I get the vote?
5 out of 6 trustees.
That's a no.
Okay. My last thing, the village is looking very festive. Jean, thank you very much to the beautification committee. Public Works put up the trees in the rain-ready garden. I'm going to be out there tomorrow, putting the rest of the decorations on after 2:30. So if anybody's available to come and help us put up some garland and ornaments, we would appreciate the help. But, yeah, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas in Midlothian. And that's all I have.
Override the, yeah, the zoning. Right.
Sorry, we're on a sidebar.
They're inside that. But to reject it, we do have it already.
Thank you, ma'am. Trustee Kilby.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have tonight is a report on Light Up Midlothian. We've had a lot of little bumps in the road here, but where we are right now is that the Midlothian Hardware does have light strands, 100-foot light strands that they are selling for $15. For $15 a light strand. So basically, we would be, if we went ahead with Light Up Midlothian, we would be giving away $15 light strand to each business that wanted to participate. But it just strikes me as the board has to approve that before, or as we're doing this, what the amount of we're going to spend so that Treasurer Britton could reimburse Midlothian Hardware.
They don't want to wait till the end of the season and get one check? You talking about, you saying?
Well, in any way, shape, or form, the board hasn't approved the money amount, any possible expenditure for Light Up Midlothian.
Put it on the agenda for next week.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But
So
we don't know how
I
much,
would
though.
say, if
You
we're
would be
gonna
at
do that, I would
up
say
to.
we would do 50 times 15 would be 750. That sounds like it's a
Up to
reasonable, a possible number, I don't know. Probably maybe a little high, but is the board okay with spending that amount of money?
Yes.
I can't spend it, so I think that should be on the agenda for next week.
So we need to word something to say that we're going to approve up to $750 for the Light Up Midlothian program.
Yes.
Do we mention Midlothian Hardware in the motion?
True Value,
True Value?
or Girls True Value, right? Is that what it is?
Midlothian, True Value,
Just
whatever.
$750 for the Light Up Midlothian program?
Yes, to the program.
Consent agenda, everyone?
Just a clarifying question, is this now going to be an annual expenditure or just a one-time expenditure?
If we get this off the ground, it'll be annual
Annual.
expenditure, but
Right.
there's
So I
been,
just-
there's been little things, is just back and forth a little bit.
Don, my question is, I'd like it to be annual, so would we need to budget every year another $750 every year going
Well,
forward?
based on what happens.
Okay,
Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, we're hopeful that we'll get a
Okay.
substantial number of businesses. Certainly we'll be out there talking to businesses, reminding them about that. They're going to get a letter signed, I hope, by the mayor about this. And hopefully when they see the letter, and they'll realize that this is really a good deal. All they have to do is look at two businesses in Midlothian who definitely agree with this, Flannery's and Durbin's. So, I mean, it's time for the businesses to get noticed, and even if they're not part of the holiday business crush, they need their business noticed. They need to, every week I get, I don't know about every week, but at least a few times a month, I get a question, how long have you been here? I've been here 24 years, so, in our business, so I'm sure they have the same question asked to them all the time too. This is a way of alleviating that.
Cool.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Crowley.
A few things tonight, sir. First of all, last week, we took off the committee ordinances from the consent agenda and put them on for discussion for this week. And I just wanted to see if anybody had any constructive criticism or comments or changes that they'd like to make. I do have a couple questions for Attorney Valadez, nothing major. So with regards to the committee involvement liaison committee, I did think that, we have a lot of information in here. One of the things we don't have in here that I saw, and I could be wrong, is that it doesn't have the OMA language, that everyone on the committee will need to be trained and certified in OMA under their state. And the other thing that I had a question on is something that's come up recently with the CPC, is when the CPC does fundraising, they had previously shared an account with the Police Officers Association. However, the Police Officer Association doesn't have that account anymore. And so with regards to fundraising, when a committee or commission does that, does anybody have an idea on how those accounts are supposed to be kept, or are they supposed to be kept under the treasurer, or?
The beautification committee on its fundraising gives its funds to the treasurer. And it is part of their account.
So
my
concern with that is that at the end of every year,
Yes,
what will happen with that money? 'Cause
that
it
money
needs
will
to
go, that money will go away.
Well, people aren't going to do fundraising in May when we have our, or June, whatever it is, when we have our fundraising.
It doesn't go
Just
away.
wait,
It's
yeah.
all in the general fund. And if you use it, then you use it. If you don't use it, then you don't use it. Your fundraising money doesn't go away. It just goes into the general fund.
Well, that's not the opinion of, okay, I'm just saying, you talk to Treasurer Britton about that.
Traditionally, it goes away.
Yeah,
But with a note to the treasurer, she can put it aside and put it into the next year's budget.
okay.
Okay?
So will it be like a second, so will it be like a second line item under that committee? Because, most committees get a stipend from the village. And that money I know goes away if it's not used. But the fundraising money,
It can be organized that way if you so desire.
well, I don't really have a desire. I just need to know how to do it, to be honest with you.
Well, like I said, there's 3 ways that you could possibly do it. One is it goes away, becomes part of the general fund. The second is that you can allocate it to the next year's budget process. And now I've forgotten what the third one was. The one you just mentioned.
I forgot what she mentioned.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
I don't think it's an issue because now that these are becoming official municipal code provided for committees,
Right.
and therefore there's no question that they are legitimate municipal corporation uses. The question comes in, what happens if you're trying to raise money to help the village pay for these committees? To what Trustee Ivan said, the treasurer can certainly do an offset. It's a matter of an entry in a ledger saying this is how much they raised, this is how much the village is giving them for their operations. I don't think there's any issue in terms of.
And so,
So the second line, that's what I think was what you were mentioning.
Okay.
so again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult here. So if they deposit it into the if they deposit it to the treasurer, somebody can direct her to say that the fundraising money rolls over year to year,
Absolutely, yeah.
right? That's not a
I
problem.
would say the liaison of that committee, I would
Okay.
Without diminishing the normal budgeted amount.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Then do we need to add that to this ordinance?
No.
No? Okay. I just had a couple other little minor suggestions in here, just some word changes. Attorney Valdez, I'll just give these to you though, okay?
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything on the committee involvement liaison committees?
I like it.
No, is this pretty much the document that we shared like in October, I think it was, with everyone's kind of collective comments on it? It looks like it is.
I didn't
Yes.
compare it to October's.
Okay.
So I have a question which I didn't realize was that two things about the membership was there's going to be 5 members, 2 of which are going to be the village department and the trustee. So there's going to be 3 voting members from the committee. I don't know why that is. Why are the trustee liaison and the village department voting? I mean,
I don't care if we're voting or not. My big concern was that we had a representative from the departments that are following.
well,
The elected official wouldn't be, the trustee liaison wouldn't be voting.
well, according to this, they do. And the village department does. There's going to be three
residents, the
Three
department head,
residents
and a trustee.
Yeah, that's 5 voting. So I don't think that should be structured that way.
But do they vote? What would they be voting on?
Yeah.
That's what,
They're not
that's would be my point. I mean,
Yeah.
why?
These committees are, again, they were intended to give the current advisory committees that we have, operating the way they are now,
Yeah.
the stability of being included into the village code. So the
Well,
question comes
I
in.
understand they're advisory, but
So
it's
what's your
some,
recommendation then?
my recommendation is 5 residents. And the other 2 be liaisons or ad hoc or whatever you want to call them. I understand that in some committees, it's very important for the department to be there. I would say on some committees, it's not all the time, but
See, I disagree.
sometimes it is.
I think it's important because I think we've relied too much on our volunteers to do to figure out how to do things like post agendas and create
Right,
agendas
right.
and post minutes that should be being done by the departments.
And I'm not saying that this has to be this way, or we can't change it, or shouldn't
I was
change it.
just-
The intent of the committee and the structure pursuant to Trustee Crowley's
Right.
indication to me as to what she was looking for is so that the 3 public members have the trustee
Right.
right there and have the department head assigned right there. So
Right.
they can have this discussion so that it gets directly to the trustee and the department head
Right.
to advise the
Right,
board.
right.
That's,
I
you know.
agree, but I just don't think they should be,
I don't see
I don't care how many.
I don't see any voting.
Yeah, I don't care how many, I mean, I didn't have a.
I mean,
don't have a
overall,
preference
you
for
would
number.
assume that if they're a member, they're going to be voting.
But what are they going to be voting on? I mean, like, for example,
The other 2, to me, it would be 5 residents. And
I don't-
and you should have the other 2 at the meeting.
Doesn't
doesn't
the
matter.
committee make a recommendation to the board, and so we
Yes,
would
they're
vote
advisory.
on that?
Yes.
Well, he's
Right,
saying
right.
that there's some committees that, when they meet, they talk about an item they want to do, and then they vote on it to see if they want to do it.
That's true, too.
So 5, I don't know, 5 is fine with me.
It's fine with me.
5?
Just real quickly, I think what Trustee Crowley was trying to say is that they want to direct, that these committees were designed to give a direct input into the department head and the trustee overseeing it, so that they're sitting at a table and they don't have to come like Gene comes and tells them what's going on. They have already had an opportunity to consult and collaborate and give and take, and that way, when Gene comes up and says, this is what we want to do, the department head already knows about it, and the trustee already knows about it.
I
But-
totally agree with that. I think the committee members should be residents who are voting on it. Because basically,
Huh?
they're going to be doing the work,
So-
basically, but
I think we have to have something in here that says the mayor shall, there's going to be someone from the department
Yes,
and there's going to
yes,
be someone from
yes.
the village there.
but not as many.
Otherwise what happens is it's kind of, maybe there's a department person there, maybe there's not. It doesn't have to be the chief. I mean, for me, it doesn't have to be the chief
I
of
guess we
police.
could add ex officio members of the
Ex
trustee.
officio, that's what I meant. I
Ex
think they should
officio
be
member
ex
of the
officio.
trustee, and then they wouldn't be
Right.
voting, and they wouldn't have to show up.
Right.
They would just be,
Well,
on the committee if
and
they
that's-
choose.
And that's right, and, my experiences with beautification, there's sometimes that the department head doesn't have to be there. I wasn't thinking
I'm
about.
not saying department head,
Well,
just a
some
representative.
Some representative, and,
It might be a department head, it might be
yeah,
just a village
and
employee.
as far as doing the minutes, maybe the trustee liaison could get more involved with that. I don't really see the department head doing the minutes, but I do think the department representative.
I'm gonna let you come to my committees and you can take the minutes, sir.
If we tell Chief Delaney to take the minutes, he's going to take the minutes.
He'll do a very good job too, just so you know.
So what do you think?
So I could add, I could make the village representatives ex officio.
Ex officio.
Okay.
And then the other concern I had was that it could have 3 other residents. In some committees, that's fine, but like I'm thinking of Keep Midlothian Beautiful, where it's a committee as a whole with 20 people that might be there from different spots that want to be there and have their say and, take charge and do things. And if you're limiting it to,
Well, anybody can, I think 5 is fine, but, anybody can come to the meetings
well,
and
according to this, it
participate.
can have 3 residents.
This
No,
is
just,
officially appointed
But anybody
people.
can come.
Okay.
And then
Like you go to beautification committee all the time,
I
right?
do.
And it's Carl's, so
I
you
do.
still go.
Yeah. Well, as long as that's clear, because I don't know.
I think that was our intent, never to stop somebody from coming. That wasn't my intent. More people, the better.
Okay.
But again, these are officially appointed members. These committees can have as many people as they want, come, like you said, come to the meeting and participate and.
But only five,
Because
but
Just
five
only
would be
three
on
can
board.
vote.
Only 3 can vote, or 5. You make it 5 or 3?
Well, 3 can vote, two ex officio.
2 ex officio and 5.
Oh,
You want 5 residents.
Five residents?
5
2 ex
residents, not
officio.
Got it.
I think the ex officio is important. I agree, but
I would probably change it to up to 5,
Up to 5.
not 5.
Well, yeah.
not
you know.
Up
a
to 5.
requirement of 5.
That's fine, that's what.
well, not more than 5.
Okay, I'll make those changes.
And Don, the ex officio would be a department representative and a trustee liaison, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Is it that, because ex officio could be anybody.
I don't know what ex officio means. so-
I mean, they can't vote.
That means that.
They participate in the
yeah.
meetings, they are not a member of the committee per se.
But they have a right to be there.
Right, and they advise and they consent. But
They have
don't
all the
vote.
responsibility but no authority.
They give their wisdom.
Anywho,
Yeah, I got it.
you got it?
I got it.
Okay.
And we're going to revive the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, that's.
Well, that's our second one.
Okay.
So, I took a look at it, and again, I mean, I did have a couple questions, but like one of the things were, I think that all of the trustees should be on it. That's my opinion. It's a very important topic. We have, not that they all have to come, but like, I think that having everyone on this board be.
Like the finance committee?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Because I think it's
So-
important for everybody to be a part of that.
We don't appoint anyone to the finance meeting, committee. I don't know, don't know how you word that.
Just change the number, right? He's got it in there as, should be 2 trustees? Just make it
2 trustees.
all trustees.
Do you want,
And
so
keep
they
the
would
rest the
be
same.
ex officio members again, all the entire village board and board of trustees?
Excuse me.
No.
No.
Everyone that comes to the finance meetings can.
And do we want there to only be 3 residents and 2 business owners?
Yes.
When I was on the Economic Development Committee, it was comprised of, I believe we had, trying to remember, we had 5 or 6 residents and we had 2 business owners, but the business owners, one of the business owners did not live in town, so they really couldn't participate in any type of vote at all. They were just there as in an advisory capacity.
I don't think that applies to this committee. It does apply to plan commission and zoning board. I don't think it would apply to.
Yeah, I will have to look up, this change may have legal consequences in that if every member of the village board is now on the economic committee, then any meeting in which they all show up, you're operating as a committee as a whole.
So
Yeah,
they just
it's
change
gonna be
the
a vote. We
agenda.
have to
Like the
do it,
finance
yeah.
meeting.
I'd like to
Yeah.
but the finance committee it's the finance committee, it's a subcommittee of
Of the village
of the
board.
village board. That's not what the economic development
It's
committee
not a
has been.
subcommittee.
It's never been there. It's not a
It's an
subcommittee.
ad hoc committee like all
Correct,
the rest.
Correct. So you, essentially by putting every member of the board on there, it now becomes
Another committee.
it becomes a committee of the whole.
And to Don's point earlier with regards to the other ordinance, should we change this to say composed of up to 5 residents rather than just limiting it to 3?
Up to 5.
Yeah.
Yes. So economic development, if you envision it, Mayor,
Excuse me?
what do you envision for economic development? You're going to have 7 members?
Well, now it would be up to,
Well, no.
I don't think we can have all 6 trustees
No.
appointed to it.
You can't have a quorum, I would say.
But does that still not apply if they show up?
Right, because I mean, that's the problem, Nick.
No, anyone can show up. A village
But
board
then we
member
have a
is
quorum.
You just have, we're going to be following Open Meetings Act anyway. So,
but, well, to
We're not
Sandy's
a voting-
point,
we're not a
what if
voting
at the
member.
last minute, an extra trustee decides, oh, I think I'm going to go to the economic development meeting tonight, and then all of a sudden, boom, we have a quorum, but it wasn't posted anywhere. I mean, so as a matter of course, should we always just post when these
Oh, no, all of these committees.
EDC meetings are?
All of these committees have to follow the open meeting act, so.
Now, I realize that, but that doesn't mean that they're always going to know that they have to post an agenda.
As a meeting of the whole.
If they're
I
taking
think the
action, yeah.
attorney's saying as a practice going forward, all agendas for all committees
Correct.
should be posted.
Should be
That's
posted?
part of the
They
open
are
meetings act.
posted.
That's part
They are
of the open
posted.
meetings
It's
act.
how they're posted. Are they posted as a committee meeting or are they posted as a meeting of the whole?
Right. But again, Mayor, you know, like, I think two businesses came to you and said they wanted to work on some business development or business events
I have-
for
I have
downtown.
three- I
I
have
think
three
that was
now.
what you were thinking of,
I
wasn't
have,
it?
yeah, I have 3 now that are really, really interested in getting more involved with the chamber and the village, and this is exactly what they'd be working on,
Right.
this committee. But
Sort of like what Tinley Park did with Main Street, that's how they got their
That's-
the ball rolling.
Exactly.
Main Street is a ground
Yep.
And
level.
that's the guy that's going to be on our committee that got that ball rolling.
The guy that started
He was part of the
Main
Tinley
Street.
Park Main Street.
Tinley Park Main Street, their
the
group.
insurance man?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Never mind. But I mean, that would be great. Thank you.
And they have quite a few ideas about events that our events committee will be working on to help bring people here to
So
maybe create more economic development.
should we, if that's the case, if we change this language to say composed of up to 5 residents, should we maybe up the number of business owners? Or do we just want to limit the appointed group, appointed committee, but invite all others to participate?
I think that's a better idea.
Okay.
The objective of Trustee Crowley also was that these committees get going again and get operating. And the problem that we had with these committees is that there were so many members, it was hard to fill all the seats, and there wasn't a sense of it's important that I be there. And so that's why we wanted to shrink them a little bit, so that everyone can identify who's on these committees and that they're supposed to be there and they're supposed to be meeting regularly, and not have it, a half a dozen here, 6 there, and then you get 3 people show up and then it disappears, it just stops.
So if we put up to 5 in the other committees, is that now the quorum for that? Is that now mean
However
5?
many you appoint though. would
Yeah.
be- Right? So if you bring 3 in the beginning of the year, or 4 in the beginning of the year, or 5 in the beginning of the year, whoever you appoint, that determines the quorum, correct?
Correct.
All right,
Correct.
all right. I'm good with that.
Yeah, and then when somebody walks away, then a number would be
Okay,
reduced.
I'm good with that. As long as we're not locking into a number that we don't
So
have.
so what are we doing with the Economic Development Committee in terms of up to 5 residents? That's the change?
I
Residents or committee members?
Business. What we're talking about.
Because what you're talking about is business owners being,
Well, currently we have, the Economic Committee, as it's being proposed to the board tonight,
Right.
is going to consist of 2 trustees, 3 residents, and 2 business owners who do not have to live in the village. So that's your 7. Do you want to change that? We already know that I do not recommend that we have a quorum of trustees, because that creates a committee of the whole, and it creates
absolutely.
power, authority problems.
How about 3 and 3?
Well, 3 trustees is
3
a...
trustees is
Two
a quorum.
trustees. 2
2
trustees,
trustees.
but 3
Majority of a
residents,
quorum.
3 owners, business owners.
But I mean, do you want, what is really wrong with appointing 4 business owners and who aren't residents of Midlothian? But they have a vested interest in the business climate of Midlothian.
And then we keep raising that number, and then they can't make the meetings. We've increased the quorum, and they can't make the meetings. That's been the whole problem.
Yeah.
Right. But what is the best way to do it? Is our residents What's
I would-
more important,
Well, then should-
I would
residents
say
or
the
business
current,
owners?
the current
Then should we leave the
configuration
other,
is the
should we
best
leave
way.
the other ordinance at 3 then, instead of saying up to 5?
No, up to 5, that's, I mean, that's not changing. I'm fine with the way this is, economic development. At least this is a start, as you said, we get this started, we get it going, and then we build or not, I mean,
Or change it later on down the road.
The
yeah.
ordinance can be.
The goal is to give every member significant input and authority for the committee's responsibilities and to have them be accountable. Because we want them to meet and we want them to work. And when you have a lot of people, some showing up, some not showing up, what happens is that the importance of the position seems to be diluted, and that's what the problem was in the past.
There's a lot more chit-chatting,
Become social.
more jaws than paws.
And it's not as noticeable if you don't show up, if there's 15 members.
But Attorney Valdez, members of economic development, voting members of economic development can be non-residents.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
business owners. Because they're vested with a business in Midlothian.
Right.
Because in the past, they were not, just
I know,
making
I
that
know.
distinction.
I know.
All right,
So that's fine.
Okay? All right,
Okay.
you got it.
good. What you got tonight?
Sorry. The other thing that I just wanted to bring to the board's attention, the police department is finishing up the background checks on the new police officer that I will be bringing to the board hopefully in the next few weeks as a replacement for one of our officers. And the CPC toy drive is in full swing. We've already filled up the roll call room with a number of boxes of toys. They're thrilled with that. We also have some additional options for adopting being a Secret Santa, so please look on Facebook and on the village website for all those details. And the last thing I just want to bring up is one of the things that Chief Delaney and I and the mayor have been working with our schools on our school, with our school meetings and things like that, is safety to and from. We've concentrated recently on Central Park, and we've come up with some suggestions and some ideas that I'm going to talk to the principal and superintendent. I think they'll be amenable, and then we'll be making some changes, adding some signage and some other things to try to make that a little safer and easier to maneuver in that area. So more on that to come. I think that's all I have tonight. That's it.
Thank you. Attorney Valdez.
Just that the local liquor commission met, issued its decision. SVN's business and liquor license has been permanently revoked, and they were fined $1,000. The bar has the ability to appeal to the Illinois Liquor Commission. In the event that they do that, and we get notice of that, they would have the right to reopen until the state commission determines their appeal. That's it.
Thank you. Only thing I have on my business, I have to report to everyone. Gene, Superintendent Sperry sent his team in here this week to do a thorough inventory of our chairs, and they were able to identify 4 chairs that needed to be removed from the village chambers, which they did. So you should be safe now. That's all I have. Clerk Ross?
I have nothing tonight, sir.
Seeing there's no further business coming before the board, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.